Oh, good evening. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight. Really looking forward to this. And I'd like to also, on behalf of the other speakers, to welcome all of the attendees at this session. It's going to be outstanding. I encourage all of you to take full advantage of the whole cross-section of speakers who are here. Whether you have any questions, whether during the talks when you hear them tomorrow, jot them down. If there's not an opportunity to ask them during the session, more than likely there won't be. It's quite busy. And approach them and after. And if you've got just general questions, whatever, take full advantage because this day and a half is yours. As a matter of fact, to perhaps help, I wonder if I could, all the speakers who happen to be here tonight, can you raise your hands, please? Okay, just target those guys. Okay, they're there to help. Now, let me just see. Give me a second. We're all plugged in. Sorry. All right, no problem. That's great. There you go. There it is. Okay. You guys are all very fortunate. You may know this, but I can assure you once you get out of Queens, you become well aware of it. And that's because you're going to be soon to be graduates from a university which is so highly regarded in Canada and throughout the world that it positions you extraordinarily well to really launch your career. And I'm going to be talking about this career path because there could be certain misperceptions. Certainly I had them when I left university, and it's quite possible that you look at your career path as launched off in this direction is going to be something like this. It's going to be a path which is very, very exciting. It's going to be straight up. But the reality is that the path might be a little bit more like this, or possibly swinging around. And every one of these twists and turns, if you look at this, the horizontal axis is just the changes in your career path, and this is just with time as you progress upwards. But you're all moving towards significant accomplishment at the top. But it's an unpredictable path. Another one could be something even more extreme. It could go all over the world. And I guarantee you that despite good intentions, you may look at your career path and try to actually, and you do this all the time, saying, okay, this is the path I'm going to go on. But from my experience and anyone else I've known, you know your career path after it's happened, basically. So now the reasons for this, and there are a myriad of reasons, but just capturing some of them is that there may be new growth opportunities that you see when you actually step out in the industry. You may see an opportunity to go on a different direction within a company or to a different company. It's conceivable that you may end up, because you're early in your career right now, and it's basically through education. You may get out there and find out you want to change paths. It just doesn't, captivate you the way you thought it was going to, but it certainly provided a superb foundation. Those two initiatives are ones which you have led yourself, but there could be other ones which are imposed upon you. You could have job loss, and there are a myriad of reasons, whether the company is sold, there's industry downturn, there's performance issues, it just continues on. Or there could be personal matters, and personal matters are anything external which can influence the direction that you end up taking. So, but each one of these, I guarantee you, represents an opportunity, and the opportunity is quite significant. Obviously, by virtue of a change in career path to some extent, just as you saw in those charts I showed before, you get a new direction implicitly. But with that new direction, you just reasonably expect that you're going to see new experiences. You're going to get new skills associated with each one of those. You've got new contacts that you're going to have a chance to meet. There's a potential for financial upside. When I talk about personal growth, there's personal growth obviously associated with a change of direction, but there's significant personal growth which is involved in the process of the change, because especially when changes in your path are things which are imposed upon you by some external element, you get out of your comfort zone, and you got to dig deep into determining, okay, how you're going to actually address this and how you're going to find a path forward which is really going to make sense. And I guarantee you, when you're in the midst of these things, they may seem a little bit more traumatic than they are exciting. But the personal skills, a lot of them which you're developing at Queen's right now, and you're almost doing it inadvertently. And I'm not talking about the technical programs you're taking. I'm talking about the process of your education, which is so superb at Queen's. And the work ethic that you picked up, just by virtue of the magnitude of the amount of work which you have to take on, the work ethic obviously is significant. You've got working in teams, and the component of working in teams entails compromise and collaboration, fulfilling obligations, and you've got to carry your weight of the contribution, for the entire team. These lead to some very significant personal traits. You've got working to deadlines, and there are clear implications if you don't succeed in actually achieving those deadlines. It's critical thinking skills. Well, the critical thinking skills are just looking at and examining opportunities and issues and situations and really assessing it thoroughly to determine what's the strengths and weakness of that and why you like it or don't like it. Rather than just a frivolously superficial assessment, it goes much deeper than that. But another one, those initial ones are processes which you are, and skill and traits which you're learning through the course of your education. But there's another one which goes deep into yourself, and that is your attitude, and how you actually tackle it. And attitude is enormous, and how, looking to really muster all of these skill sets in a way that's going to be very proactive and productive and very, very effective takes a very clear, focused, proactive, positive attitude. So I thought I'd give you some examples going through this, and to really create a context. And I thought maybe I pick one of these, and let's pick this real extreme one. And I'm really familiar with this one because that's mine, you see? And when I'm going to kick this off, just to get more comfortable in this, so just give me a second. Just be a moment. Okay. Okay. So, this is what these babies looked like back then. So, this takes me back, and we're going back a long ways. Now, this is when we arrived at there, and these were, there were some Frex, really nice cooperative guys. Frex, I think they're in second year or something like that. And these guys were fantastic. They helped me learn to walk, they learned to dress. It was really superb. And I met some outstanding individuals out there, and here a group of us got together for dinner, and all of this was a superb experience. However, when I was there, the part of the problem, and you'll see it turns out to be a problem, was I didn't have a lot of direction. I didn't know I didn't have a career path. I didn't know what made a lot of sense. I didn't have any particular passion. My passion actually was going to Queen's and having, that was the adventure of the process. I became president of the first year engineering. I sang in this folk singing group, which you may not have heard of, but that was big back then. And I really had no groupies in folk singing group, I can tell you though. But in those areas, I missed one key element, and that became blatantly apparent when I got around to March, April. When I got the letter that explained that it was adios, muchachos, and this was my reaction. Well, the amazing thing to me is that I even had that reaction, because if I look back right now, it was self-evident. But at the time, I was totally amazed. Well, the opportunity it created was quite remarkable. And this really fell in the category of more traumatic than exciting. But the opportunity was that I knew I just had to get that degree then, because I hadn't had that setback before in my life. So I had to muster the discipline, the focus, the effort, and some element of maturity to move forward, to get my degree. And I got my 10 minutes of fame with my family at that point. But there was another element, and that is a career path. When my second year of university, which was my first year, it turned out again, I actually listened this time, and I was taking first year geology, and I just got unbelievably enthusiastic with first year geology. What was actually taught was just excited me with all the Earth's processes, all the many dimensions of engineering geology, marine geology, just anything associated with geology. And that started me on a path which built into a passion. But it wasn't a passion at that point, it was just a tremendous intrigue. But during the course of my education, being exposed to the superb profs which teach here, and then the summer jobs and various other jobs that I actually had, I had a chance to be exposed to opportunities in the East Coast, working and diving in the subsurface. Down in the Caribbean, we did some deep work in research up in the Arctic. I was working through the ice and collecting sediments, and in this particular case through McClure Strait. As Jim mentioned, I had an opportunity to participate in this first circumnavigation of North and South America for a year, and so I took a year off between third and fourth year engineering. And I was responsible for collecting some of the deep sea sediment cores in water depths up to 10,000 feet. It was quite a remarkable experience. And this was like university on steroids, quite frankly, because you would go out for about 30 days at sea, and you'd have all these PhDs come and do their work. You'd go back for 4 days on land. They would all disappear. Another batch would come in, and all they wanted to do was talk about the research, and myself and this one other fellow just sucked it up. It was spectacular. Obviously went to far reaches of the globe when we did that type of work. I worked in the Mackenzie Delta. And in that case, I was doing consulting, and myself and one other individual were looking for coarse plastic sediments which could be used to build artificial islands, ice islands back at that time, for some of the drilling rigs that were operating in the Mackenzie Delta back then. I participated in an expedition, Arctic expedition. We put an underwater habitat underneath the ice, and I did some of the geology from there. That was a base which you used to go and collect core samples. And I spent some time in the Soviet Union. This was a different time in the Soviet Union. It was during the Cold War, but it was fascinating. There was an exchange program, and it was an opportunity to read some materials up in the Barents Sea. So, overall, I had a clear path, and that was marine geology, and it was very, very exciting. So let's go back to my career now. Here I am, and I've got the foundation, that bedrock which was provided by the Queen's degree. Bit of a challenge initially getting that bedrock, but once I got going, it was superb. And then went up to getting the Queen's degree and a career path. However, so that started me going up that vertical line. But as you see, it very quickly went over to the right. And what led to this was just a series of unpredictable circumstances. I got approached by Shell, and I was offered a job to do exploration in Calgary. And I thought this would be fascinating because my wife and I, Lorna, we were impoverished, basically. And the thought of earning $14,000 a year was just overwhelmingly intriguing. And so I took that job, and my thinking was pretty clear. Well, it wasn't pretty clear. It was absolutely clear that I was going to go out there for maybe a couple of years, do the work, pay off debts, come on back, do my PhD, and then go and work at the Bedford Institute of Oceanography because the path, I knew my career path, that baby was going to the moon, right? Well, went to Shell and got exposed to exploration. And I began to fall in love with exploration at this point. The elements of exploration in oil and gas that I saw, which intrigued me, were that the science and the research, the operations, the technology, the business aspects. You could work in an office, you could work in the fields, you could work in a lab, you could travel at this. It was extremely competitive. There's significant risk involved in the business, and it was financial risk as well as just geotechnical risk, obviously. And the detective work that was necessary to try to identify a target when you had a wellbore which is only centimeters across, penetrating horizons which are 2,000 to 3,000 meters in the subsurface. It became fascinating. And I saw the opportunity to apply all the process, the education that I had from Queen's, my enthusiasm with marine geology, to take the understanding I had of modern day depositional systems and to apply it to the subsurface in trying to find a path to find, fascinating reservoirs which can actually contain the hydrocarbons we're looking for. So, you come back to my career path. What it meant was I changed career direction, and I went over to Shell. And Shell provided an outstanding foundation for me. The education that they put us through, the job experiences that they exposed us to were just spectacular. And I grew significantly as an explorationist. An excellent foundation at Queen's, and then obviously that continual work and the financial resources these companies had just elevates your knowledge pretty rapidly at this point. Now, what you may notice is there's a significant move to the left. What happened at that point was I worked for 4 years, and things were going really well at Shell. And I came home, one day, and I came into the house, and saw my wife, and she came up and she said, you know what day this is? And panic goes through your body, because I didn't know what day this was. And she said, this, I said, no, what day this is? And she said, this is the day we quit our jobs and go backpacking. And I said, what are you doing? Because Shell was tattooed on my head, eh? Like Shell, I just love this organization. I love the opportunity. And I was like in line very, very shortly for a promotion that is what was indicated, which could be absolutely fascinating. But she said, no, don't you remember? When we left university, or we went to, pardon me, we left the Queens at this point, went to Shell, you promised, that after 4 years, we quit our job, didn't matter where we were, and we'd go backpacking. I said, no, come on, that was 4 years ago. I said, 4 years ago is a totally different word. You've got to accommodate these differences. She said, you don't remember, you agreed. Well, I struggled with this. Next thing, 1 month later, no job, no income, and we're backpacking. And there we are, Lauren and I, and we're down in New Zealand on the left-hand side. On the right side, it's up in the Himalayas. Superb accommodation, as you may see. And we traveled for an entire year. Well, it was a huge opportunity, as it turns out. And the nature of that opportunity was, I swung out of the career path. And by the way, with regard to swinging out of the career path, I can assure you that there was only one person on earth who thought this was a good idea. The guys who I worked for at Shell, I was just, it turns out the day I quit, it was just unfortunate timing, was a day they came in and they spoke first and offered me an international assignment. And this was very unique at that particular point in time. Well, there was a fellow, Glenn Robertson, who headed up E&P at that particular time at Shell, and arranged for to meet him. And because he said, I had to meet you, we just don't quite understand what you're doing. And the bottom line is that everyone thought basically came from Planet Zarkov. Well, my friends thought basically that's it for the career path. Aren't going to go up that career path. You're just packing it in. The very good chance that my in-laws thought we didn't quite hit the jackpot with this guy for a son-in-law. But the net result was we went traveling, and it got completely over here. But you can well imagine, you could just state what I learned. You've got a very clear sense, because we had no itinerary. Every day was brand new. We had to deal with a lot of surprises, a lot of pretty hairy situations. We traveled with hardly any money at that time. You're exposed to a diversity of cultures, diversity of situations, and you had to grow as an individual, and grow we did. And so that was just when I look back on it, a phenomenally exciting part of our time, my life and Lauren's life. When I came back, we got a job. We had no money at this point, but fortunately, managed to get a job at a company called Canadian Hunter. Canadian Hunter was a fascinating organization. It had only been around for about 6 years. It was a very entrepreneurial, smaller organization. They'd had a very major discovery in an area, I don't know if you've heard of a term, any of you in geology, the deep basin. That was that concept where you find gas underwater in horizons. Was basically founded and pursued by Canadian Hunter. But even more significantly, it was a phenomenal culture to work in. It was an exploration-driven culture. The CEO, the chief operating officer, both individuals were geologists. They had very innovative ways of approaching geology, because the common industry at that time, hard to believe now, but people were typically in silos: the drillers, the geophysicists, the geologists. They moved to the thought that you could be much more productive if you integrated all these different disciplines and tried to find paths through problems and identified creative solutions for opportunities to pursue. The company encouraged the training, the growth, and basically we just all excelled as explorationists, so a phenomenal training ground. But I don't know if you noticed, but, well, pardon me, we continued on actually for about 5-6 years, and then moved into business. They had a chance to work with one of these individuals' name was Jim Gray, and then there's another fellow who was there, Steve Savadant, and myself, and we worked on business, and both these individuals were very, very strong in business, so there's an opportunity to improve dramatically my business skills. However, you see what's happening up here. We're going to go to the left again. What happened was, this is now been there for a total of about 10 years, and this is the latter part of the 80s. In the mid-80s, the commodity price dropped. What was really high at that time, it actually got up to $30, $35 in oil, and it dropped down to around $10. Actually got just slightly below that, $9.50 I think it was. had a huge impact on the revenue generation capabilities of organizations. The Hunter was challenged at that time as well. They weren't doing all that well. And the struggle, that combination of struggles, was that one day Kim walked into my office and said, basically, the job is going to disappear. And I lost my job. Well, once again, talk about more traumatic than exciting. You sit back and it just hits you because you saw yourself going up that particular path. But it ended up being a phenomenal opportunity again because it meant that I had to dig deep, like I was talking about, dig deep into a lot of the skill sets which developed at Queen's and then built up significantly since I'd actually left Queen's. And I went out and I consulted over a period of a year in Canada and the United States. Myself and a fellow who's in the US were looking at setting up a company down in Texas. But at that time I got approached by Suncor. And Suncor gave me an opportunity which was fascinating. And it was too good to resist. And that was Suncor, like all the other organizations I talked about at that time, was struggling. And Suncor had three basic divisions at that point. They had the exploration and production, they had the oil sands, and they had the refining and marketing. Every one of those divisions was basically bottom quartile. The exploration group had just set 3/4 of the staff go, so from 100 down to about 25 people. It was a very rugged time in the industry, just all the way through. Well, the job I was offered was to come into exploration and to work with the team and lead it along a path that would move from, within a matter of 3 years, from bottom quartile to significantly higher performance. And they guaranteed me $30 million of investment capital to conduct the program. And the attraction of the job was that after 3 years, if we'd done that, then it was just a path forward. And if I didn't do it, it was, who's Roger Smith? Adios muchachos again, gone. And that was just exciting, unbelievably exciting to me. So, took the job. In a matter of 2 years, we had a very successful run. The team did extraordinary things. We hired additional people. We positioned ourselves very, very effectively in the basin. We went from bottom quartile performance to within measured the top, this one organization measured the top 40 companies in performance in various metrics for the oil and gas industry. So in exploration metrics, to the top quartile. A few years were the top decile, 1 year were the number one. And that ran for a span from probably about 6 years subsequent to actually achieving it. Very, very successful and very exciting. We are having a great time. But you see, the path goes again to the right. And we didn't see that as an issue. We just saw each one of every time I was on a path, we saw this, like that rocket, basically going to the moon. Well, what happened was that Suncor was having, as I mentioned, significant success. However, there was the life of the resource that we actually had in the oil sands, which was a significant part of the revenue generation for the organization, was only had a relatively short-term life. We moved and bought additional lands up in this area, and the decision was made by the board to do an expansion. It was a millennium expansion, and this was going to happen. The decision was made in 1999. And in that time, the expansion was going to cost about $2 billion. It was to expand the oil sands operation. Well, in fact, what happened is that cost went significantly higher. It went to $3.5 billion. But at this time, and also in 1998, the oil price dropped from in the 20s down to $10. So we had polarization. We had the revenue generation dropping. We had the capital increasing. And very, very quickly, the organization examined cash flow on a week-to-week basis, only allocated dollars to parts of the organization where you invested, you could expect a very quick return to help address bank covenants. Exploration is not one of those. They have a longer life. So the net result, I lost my money for exploration. Well, the concern is that in that success which we had in Suncor VP exploration, that whole run of exploration, all of us, myself and the team, was that these guys, all of them, guys, gals, the whole element were extraordinarily strong, but they're hungry to explore. And suddenly, when your capital disappears, we knew the staff was ultimately going to disappear too, not because of any elements, lack of loyalty, whatever, but people are going to come with very attractive offers to go into their organizations and have the financing to drill. So the question became, what do you do? and myself and some others got together and we brainstormed, and over a period of time we came up with this concept of something called prospect generation services. Now, prospect generation services was just a name. The acronym stuck. The name was a boring name, but it was a descriptor saying we would generate prospects and market them to industry because we didn't have the capital to be able to drill wells. And if we did this, to accomplish this, we put together a team of very, very talented individuals, about 18 of us all told. And all of these individuals had found significant amounts of oil and gas in their lifetime. In this whole premise, we had industry ultimately over a period of about 10 years investing about $500 million into us. But like I was talking about at Hunter some time ago, and also at Suncor in exploration, we put together a fascinating culture. And the culture was really a very creative culture. It was one which everyone was impassioned with what they're doing. They came into that line of work just because they were driven by exploration and they wanted to be part of something that gave them the unique opportunity to do exclusively exploration fundamentally. So that was going on a superb path. And by the time we got to about 9.5, 10 years, we just saw this being perpetuated. The thinking was it would only last 2-3 years initially. And then once Suncor got on its feet, it would be folded back. But it was doing so well, the decision was made to let it run on its own. However, what you see, once again, there's a deviation. It goes to the right. What happened in a case like that was Lorna and I were down on holidays, and we came back, and this was in the spring of 2009. And when we got back, we heard some news that a couple of companies were going to merge. And so I thought, okay, the likely candidates are probably like Encana or Exxon or Talisman, because rumors had abounded that they're vulnerable. In fact, I heard the next day that it was Suncor and Petro-Canada. Well, this caused me incredible concern because prospect generation services, in all its PGS, in all its success, it would still, comparatively speaking, made a minor contribution to the profitability of Suncor. So materiality was minor, but it was building. It was quite significant. The potential, the direction, certainly where we're going. However, the combination instantly of increasing our size with the merger of those two behemoths meant that the likelihood of lasting beyond that was going to be very remote. And sure enough, what happened is prospect generation services got disbanded just basically, essentially in the day of the merger. So, extremely talented individuals. For us in this group, where we were so impassioned with it, it was like a death in the family, quite frankly. But all of us looked and said, okay, this is the oil patch, and some of them wanted to stay with the organization, some wanted to go, so I was involved in coordinating that because they're all very attractive, they're extremely attractive and highly sought after individuals. And then I retired from the organization at that point. But after retiring, just a couple weeks later now, this is like December 2009, January 2010, I set up Big Muddy. Now, Big Muddy, the name came from some lands that we went back to Suncor and purchased in lands which we had in PGS. And they're undeveloped lands, exploration lands, and they were in Big Muddy, Saskatchewan, so consequently the name. Some other individuals from PGS came and joined me, and so we became partners, and there's 4 of us, and then we had some other consultants come in to work with us. And we thought our whole intention was to try the same business model that we had working with Suncor, where we generated exploration opportunities, marketed them to industry. Well, where we are, as you see, I've reached this particular point in time, that happens to be current time, and we've drilled right now, or at least companies have drilled for us, 3 vertical, 3 horizontal wells. We're in the midst of showing other opportunities this year. So it's really stay tuned. We'll see where this is going. Also, over the last year, I've joined, and since I saw you last year, as a matter of fact, some boards, and Jim was talking. One of these boards is Velvet Energy, and this is a group that had been very successful about 10 years ago, and the team was put together again with some other individuals, financed with private equity and explorations in Western Canada. Another is Central European Petroleum. This is, once again, it's a Canadian-based operation, but the focus is Germany, and specifically, right now, it's East Germany, an intriguing organization. The other is a company a group called COST. It's called the Center for Affordable Water and Sanitation Technology. It's a non-profit. but a fascinating organization. I encourage you to look it up on its website. Just Google under CAWST, C-A-W-S-T. It promotes improved access to drinking water and sanitation for the poor in developing countries. And to date, we've reached in the last 10 years, starting from inception, in excess of 4.5 million people and in over 60 countries. It's quite a remarkable organization. So that brings you up to present. So in summary, the messages I would like to leave with you, if you just take some kernels of the thought process I'm really trying to pass on, is that there are going to be career setbacks. There are going to be changes, obviously, and some of the ones initiated yourself is not a setback because it's prescribed by yourself. There are going to be other ones where, for a myriad of reasons, remember I talked about those reasons, they just happen, and some are unique to yourself, some are generic to an organization. But those career paths, those setbacks are going to occur. But remember to take out, anytime one of these happens, sure, it's going to be traumatic at the time, but just think back to this conversation that each of these sort of setbacks creates an enormous opportunity. It's an opportunity where you can't see the path you'll take, but I can guarantee it's going to be a fascinating path. But it's important that to take full advantage of that and to be effective in carving out that new path, that you draw on these skills that I'm talking about, that you're all in the process of engaging and learning right now, and just learning inadvertently in the process of gaining education at Queen's. But also remember there are other elements, and that is that your attitude is very important. And once you go through the trauma, you start getting a path, because you're all extraordinarily talented individuals. Bring the right attitude that you can find a path through there, and you don't know what it's going to be, but it will be exciting. The creativity that's necessary to actually bring to it is exceedingly important. The contacts, hard work, are self-evident. Like you'll have contacts which will help you, but the hard work is something you bring yourself, of course. And preparedness to take risk. And the degree and the extent of the risk is up to yourself, but move out of your comfort zone to look for opportunities, because you may find in these areas you never would have guessed. The last element is passion. And passion is something that you may not always have, but I encourage you to continually strive to find something. By passion, just something that enthuses you tremendously in what you're doing. Something that when you've got it for what you're working at, time melts away. Opportunities just abound. You can just see ways through things. It brings out all the creative juices. So if you can achieve it and find these types of things, and it may vary time to time within your career, it certainly moves your performance to a higher level. So going back to this chart, remember that dotted line going up the front? That's the least likely thing to occur. However, these are just two examples. Now, you may not be as radical as mine when you come over here to the left, but there's going to be a path, and it'll be your own unique path, and you'll only know it when you look backwards. But what I can assure all of you guys is that just meeting some of you and knowing the education you're getting and the talent that you've all got, that you are all going to accomplish great things. Just recognize that when you just run that path right up to the moon. And it's going to be a ride, and so thoroughly enjoy it, okay? So thank you very much, and time for a beer.